everything in the universe emitting, reflecting, absorbing, and which allows you to determine composition, temperature, density, age, motion, physical and chemical qualities and quantities. And so that is so we are in the middle of this whole thing. There's the universe, which all operates the same way, and galaxies and millions of light years away and all this stuff in our solar system, and here's little planet Earth in the middle of all this. And then we go into the smallness of things, and basically we're working at the cellular level, because that's where your DNA is located. So we're made up of 100 trillion cells, and then even our DNA is made up of molecules and atoms, right? So this quest has been going on for as long as man has been around. Plato was looking more up at the skies for guidance, while his student Aristotle then brought physics, into, and science. He's kind of the father of science, let's say. So as far as the human being is concerned, we are made up of cells, and if you really want to, one of the problems in the medical arena is that we have so many specialists, and they're all looking at a small little area. And a lot of times when you look, let's say we're dealing with pain and it hurts here, if you look at the area of pain, it's not necessarily where the problem is. It's, where you perceive the pain, but the problem that triggers that pain may be somewhere entirely different. But anyway, so we are made up of 100 trillion of these cells. These cells are the smallest living entity, okay, which governs life and survival. It's all about survival. These cells, this is the smallest living unit that needs to struggle to survive and stay alive. And those 100 trillion cells they also need to work together. So there's this dichotomy between individuality and the entire organism, which is 100 trillion cells. But the important thing is, right in the nucleus of each cell is your entire DNA. So your DNA is in your body 100 trillion times. And your DNA holds the information on how to live, how to survive, how to digest the foods that you eat, how to detox, how to fight viruses, how to run your immune system, how to deal with stress, everything in its biochemical details. So that's what we learn in the seminar, and in the certification seminar is, for example, how that operates. That you actually make copies off of a template of the DNA. You make copies as far as how to make a molecule of serotonin, let's say, a neurotransmitter, or estrogen, a hormone, or quantum means energy. Okay, so for example, this here visualized cell. This is a cell, and it shows the membrane, of the cell with all its receptors, and how the membrane controls what goes on. The interaction between the cell on the inside, which is the DNA, and the environment, which is outside, which is calling on certain things, like that. So the cell membrane is hugely important, and it has thousands of receptors. And so that's what we are communicating with, the DNA on the inside, as well as all these receptors on the surface of the cell. So this is, for example, this is a fibroblast cell. It's just one cell. They all have different purposes, different jobs to do. But the point is that we can measure these communications, these energies, and we can influence it. We can pick up on um, quirks within. So there's a couple of factors of facts. The paradigm is an energetic paradigm of the show method, which is the wellness coach program, the technique that's at its core, and it puts the DNA at the center of it, not the brain, not the heart, but all these things entrain energetically and really rhythmically into an organism, but it's the DNA that has the information on how to survive, how to live. It includes emotions. It even includes personality and all those things. They're all kind of genetically anchored, But that does not mean, what I'm not saying is that the DNA is what you're stuck with. I'm just saying the DNA is what, let's say, God gave you to live with, and then the environment kind of interacts with that DNA to express what needs to be expressed. And that's where the personal power comes in. That's where you can make changes. You have control over a certain amount of your environment. However, we get into the details of that. So I just want to mention, Morgan, that there's a fact that we have to be aware of, and that's that all of us, we have thousands and thousands of mutations within that DNA, which are, and I'm talking about the simplest of mutations, not severe ones necessarily like cystic fibrosis, but what they call SNPs. And these are little quirks, and we have thousands of them. And they're you have a little bit of different spread than I do because we have different parents. And so that's why we're individually all different. And, when one person takes a medication and they do just fine on it, and another person takes the same medication and they have horrendous side effects, is because the other person's detoxification pathway has quirks in their DNA, and they just cannot epigenetically detoxify that medication and or that chemical, And now the cool thing is we can change that. But we have to find it, identify it, and then we can energetically harmonize it and make it work better or make it work good. All this is very detailed, okay, and complex. However, I've put this together in a system where anybody can learn this. And so there's, for example, one of the methods, one of the key elements of this technique that I teach is that we look at the meridians from traditional Chinese medicine, which acupuncturists use. Here are these meridians. That's what the Chinese have been using for thousands of years. They came up with this thousands of years ago. And they say within these meridians, flows your chi energy. They call it the chi energy. And we call it the life force. And so I look at this actually as, so what this chi energy really is cellular communications. This is where how the cells communicate with each other, the 100 trillion cells, and their DNA within. It's really the DNA that's connected, that needs to be connected. And the reason why acupuncture is still around and rather popular these days is because if a good acupuncturist can find a blockage in any one of these meridians and open that up with a needle or otherwise, good things happen, because if your cells cannot communicate, it's bad. And if you establish communications, good things happen. So I use this system to have access to the DNA of the person. So it's a two-way process. It lets me, analyze what's going on in here, where the quirks are. Let's say you're allergic to gluten. I can pick that up very easily here, either with muscle testing, which we learn at the seminar, and we can use vials, or with the software, which the iMate system, which we use at the clinic, which intercepts. If you look at the picture, you see there's this harness. intercepts the wrists, the ankles, and the head here. There's 8 contacts in the head for these 8 meridians coming across here. So we're literally measuring the frequencies of the cellular communication system at that moment. And it has all the information you could ever want. So, if there's a virus, if this body is busy right now fighting a virus, we can pick that up. You can pick that up with muscle testing, or you can pick it up with the software. And not only, that it is a virus, but what kind of virus. And then we can turn around and we can put a treatment, a feedback together, which will communicate with DNA, and in this case, if it would be a virus or a bacteria or something, it would be the immune system, and focus it on getting rid of this particular virus right now before you get deathly ill. And so that's the basic gist of this wellness coaching program. It's a very sophisticated program, and it covers, all the inflammatory conditions that people have nowadays, all the autoimmune diseases, everything. And it harmonizes your DNA and those mutations within in a very detailed fashion. Because, as it turns out, each vitamin, each mineral, each amino acid, each protein, each fat, they're all managed, the metabolism of them are managed by a set of certain genes, and we can identify them, and we can look if there's any quirks, any problems with those genes, and then which would manifest themselves in like what we would call allergies, but really it just simply manifests in inflammation.